Princess Lyria of Valoria had never doubted her life's path. Born into royalty on a bright, shimmering planet where the skies were painted with two suns, she had always followed the rules. From the moment she could walk, she had been taught to obey, to smile, and to never question the decisions of her family. Her parents, the king and queen of Valoria, were strict but fair, and everyone in the palace had always told her that duty came first. For Lyria, duty meant preparing for her upcoming royal marriage. It was an arrangement made not out of love, but out of necessity. The union would strengthen ties with another powerful alien planet, and it was her role to agree without hesitation. No one had asked her feelings, because in Valoria, feelings rarely mattered when the kingdom's future was at stake. And yet, despite her compliance, Lyria felt a small flicker of curiosity inside her, a quiet whisper that maybe, just maybe, there could be more to life than duty. But she quickly pushed the thought away. Curiosity was dangerous. One morning, as the twin suns rose and painted the palace in golden light, a message arrived from Earth, the distant planet of humans. The message was carried in a sleek, hovering vessel that glided effortlessly through the palace courtyard. Couriers had never looked so nervous. They had not expected Earth to respond to Valoria's invitation to the Intergalactic Diplomatic Summit. The message was simple. Earth was sending an ambassador to observe Valoria and learn about its culture. His name was Alex. Lyria frowned as she read the official letter. Humans were known in the galaxy as unpredictable, bold, and sometimes reckless. They did not follow the same rules as Valorians, who valued order, precision, and harmony above all else. Why would the Earth send one of their own to Valoria, the careful jewel of the galaxy? Why now? Lyria asked quietly to her maid, a small, silver-scaled creature named Kiri. Why would they send him here just as my marriage preparations are beginning? Kiri tilted her head. Perhaps they are curious, princess. Humans are different. Their ways may surprise you. Lyria frowned again but turned her attention back to the window. Outside, the palace gardens were alive with morning dew, the flowers glinting like tiny stars under the sun's light. Lyria always found peace in the gardens, though lately even they felt too ordered, too perfect. She longed for something unexpected, something real. Later that day, the humans arrived. The ambassador, Alex, stepped out of the hovering craft with a confident stride. He was tall, with hair that caught the sunlight and eyes that seemed to hold curiosity about everything. His expression was calm, kind, and open. Unlike the Valorians, he did not bow low in reverence but offered a polite nod. The moment Lyria saw him, she froze. It was not the first time she had seen someone new, but something about Alex felt different. He did not move like a guest. He moved like someone who belonged in the world, even if it was not his own. He smiled at the palace staff, and even they seemed to relax in his presence, which was unusual. Lyria's heart beat a little faster, though she did not understand why. She quickly reminded herself, feelings were irrelevant. Humans were strange. She was royalty. She must remain composed. The ambassador was escorted to the grand hall, a space where the walls shimmered like liquid crystal and the floor reflected the suns above. The Valorian court had gathered for the reception, dressed in silks and shimmering jewelry, their faces polite but rigid. Princess Lyria, the head steward announced, bowing deeply. The human ambassador, Alex, has arrived. Alex bowed politely, his gaze calm and respectful. He spoke in the common galactic language, his voice warm and steady. It is an honor to be here, Princess. I hope to learn from your people and share knowledge from my own world. Lyria blinked. His words were simple but sincere. There was no arrogance, no attempt to impress. He did not seem like someone who wanted to win favor. He simply wanted to understand. The court whispered among themselves. Some Valorians were impressed, others suspicious. Humans were unpredictable. They did not follow the traditions that had guided empires for centuries. And yet Lyria could not look away. The first day of Alex's visit was filled with ceremonies and introductions. Lyria observed him as he moved among the court, listening carefully, asking thoughtful questions, and smiling gently at anyone who spoke to him. He helped a young Valorian technician fix a floating display that had stopped working, not by ordering anyone around, but by showing patience and guiding her hand. The girl's eyes sparkled with admiration. Lyria watched quietly from a balcony above. She had seen many guests, many diplomats in her life. They were all impressive in their own way, but Alex was different. He inspired respect without demanding it. He made others want to do better, simply by being himself. Later, during a private tour of the palace gardens, Lyria and Alex met by chance near the central fountain. Water arched gracefully into the air, catching the sunlight like liquid diamonds. Alex paused and studied the garden. "It's beautiful," he said softly. "Do you come here often?" Lyria nodded. "Yes, often. It is peaceful, but sometimes I feel as if I do not belong even here." Alex tilted his head, curious. "Why is that?" "I am expected to follow rules, to obey, to never question. My life is not really mine," she admitted quietly. The words startled her as much as they startled Alex. She had never spoken like this before, even to her closest attendants. Alex's expression did not change, but there was warmth in his eyes. "That sounds difficult. On Earth, we try to make choices for ourselves. It is not always easy, but it is worth it." Lyria blinked. She had never heard anyone speak like that in the palace. Not her parents, not her tutors, not even the wisest Valorian scholars. Humans were free. And somehow just seeing this human made her feel a small spark of that freedom. Over the next few days, Lyria observed Alex closely. He laughed easily, helped others without expecting reward, and asked questions that made her think differently. He noticed the little details in life, like the sound of water dripping from the fountain or the way sunlight fell on a flower, and he appreciated them openly. Lyria began to feel something she had never felt before, a combination of curiosity, admiration, and a quiet hope that life could be different. Her heart raced when he spoke to her, and she found herself searching for him among the crowds, eager to hear his thoughts. The palace staff whispered rumors about her unusual behavior, but Lyria ignored them. She did not want to think about duty or obligation. She only wanted to understand why this human made her feel alive in ways her royal life had never allowed. One evening, as the twin suns set and painted the sky in shades of orange and violet, Lyria wandered alone in the gardens. Alex found her. "There, leaning against a marble railing. You seem troubled," he said gently. "Is everything all right?" Lyria hesitated. She wanted to tell him everything, but words felt fragile and small compared to the storm of feelings inside her. Finally, she said, "I am unsure about everything, about who I am supposed to be." Alex nodded thoughtfully. "Sometimes we discover who we are by noticing who we want to be. Not what others expect, not what duty demands, but what feels right." The words struck Lyria deeply. She had never considered that she could define herself outside of duty, outside of expectation. And as she looked at Alex, at his calm, understanding gaze, she realized that humans were capable of something extraordinary: freedom, choice, and courage. For the first time in her life, Lyria felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps her life could be different. Perhaps she could be more than a princess who obeyed without question. That night, as she returned to her chambers, Lyria knew one thing for certain. The human ambassador had changed everything. She did not yet understand what the future held, but she felt ready to face it, one choice at a time. And somewhere deep inside, she felt the faintest thrill of anticipation, wondering what might happen when humans and Valorians truly understood each other, and what she might become in the process. The days after the human ambassador Alex arrived were unlike any Princess Lyria had ever experienced. Valoria's palace, usually quiet and orderly, now hummed with unusual energy. The court whispered endlessly about the human, his strange manners, and his refusal to follow certain rituals. Some were impressed, others uneasy, but Lyria could not stop thinking about him. Alex's presence seemed to bring life to every corner of the palace. When he spoke with Valorian scholars, he asked questions that made them pause, not to challenge them, but to understand. He laughed openly when mistakes happened and encouraged those around him to try again. To Lyria, it was astonishing. Valorians had always been trained to hide their emotions, to hide failure. Humans, she realized, celebrated effort and learning. One morning, Lyria decided to observe Alex more closely during his tour of the palace's technology halls. The halls were filled with floating holograms, energy conduits, and devices she had never paid much attention to. Alex, however, moved among the displays with curiosity and wonder, asking questions about how each system worked and why it had been designed in that way. "This is amazing," he said, pointing to a holographic map of Valoria's energy grid. "You've created something elegant and efficient, but also flexible. That's unusual for a society that values perfection so highly." Lyria frowned slightly. His words were not a criticism, but an observation, yet they made her reflect on her own life. Valorians valued order above all else, but sometimes that order stifled creativity. Humans seemed to notice things others overlooked. As Alex continued to speak with the engineers, a small robot suddenly whirred out of control, spinning toward a display. Everyone gasped, unsure of what to do. Alex, however, moved calmly. With a gentle touch, he steadied the robot and guided it back into place. "See?" he said softly, looking around. "Mistakes happen. The important thing is to fix them and learn, not panic." Lyria froze in surprise. She had never seen someone act so calmly in the face of potential disaster. Valorians would have immediately sounded alarms and blamed someone, but Alex had handled it without anger or fear. Later, Lyria found herself alone in the palace library, a room filled with towering shelves of ancient scrolls and digital records. She had always loved books, but she often read only what she was required to. Today, however, she wandered the aisles aimlessly, thinking about Alex and his different way of looking at the world. "Princess," a soft voice said. Lyria turned to see Alex standing at the entrance holding a small tablet. "I thought you might enjoy this. It's a collection of human stories. Some are funny, some are serious, but all of them show how humans think and feel." Lyria hesitated, but took the tablet. She opened it and began reading. The stories were simple, yet they revealed humans' curiosity, courage, and kindness. She read about explorers facing the unknown, friends helping each other through mistakes, and ordinary people making brave choices. Each story made her heart beat faster, as if she were discovering a new world within her own. "You seem fascinated," Alex said with a small smile. Lyria looked up, trying to hide her excitement. I never knew humans thought like this. It feels alive somehow." Alex nodded. "Humans try to live freely. We make mistakes, we learn, and we try again. Not everything is perfect, but it is real." Lyria thought about her upcoming marriage. It had been arranged without her input, based on duty, not love. She had accepted it quietly, as expected, but now she could not help but wonder what it would be like to make a choice for herself. Over the next several days, the cultural differences became more obvious. Lyria noticed how humans laughed freely, even when things were imperfect. They asked questions, expressed opinions, and often challenged ideas in gentle ways. Valorians, in contrast, followed rules and avoided conflict at all costs. During a formal dinner, Alex politely declined a ceremonial drink that was meant to honor the royal family in a rigid, traditional manner. The Valorian courtiers gasped. Declining was almost unheard of. "Alex," Lyria whispered, leaning close. "Are you rude?" Alex shook his head. "No, I just respect choices. I would rather be honest than follow a rule blindly." Lyria felt a thrill. He was not afraid to stand by what he believed, even in front of authority. She realized she had never seen anyone do that. Not in her family, not in the court. One afternoon, Lyria and Alex walked through the palace gardens together. The twin suns cast long shadows over the shimmering flowers. Lyria watched Alex carefully, noting the way he touched the petals gently and observed the water in the fountains. "Why do humans value freedom so much?" she asked. Alex paused, thinking. "Because life is short. We don't know how long we will live, and we want to make it meaningful. To do that, we must choose our own path, not just follow what others tell us." Lyria's heart raced. Could she ever choose her own path? Could she ever break free from the life carefully designed for her? She looked at Alex and saw a man who was brave without arrogance, kind without weakness, and free without chaos. And for the first time, she realized that humans, especially him, were not just different, they were extraordinary. That evening, Lyria's parents asked her to attend a strategy meeting for her marriage. She entered the council room, her mind still filled with images of Alex in the gardens. The king spoke about alliances and duty. The queen reminded her of honor, and advisors outlined schedules and ceremonies. Lyria listened politely but felt distant. Every word reminded her of a world she had once accepted without question, a world that suddenly felt small and limiting. She thought of Alex, of human stories, of laughter, curiosity, and freedom. She could not stop comparing. Later, in her chambers, Lyria sat alone by the window. The twin suns had set and the night sky was filled with swirling colors. She held a small book of human tales in her hands and read once more about people who chose courage over comfort, kindness over obedience, and freedom over fear. For the first time, Lyria began to imagine a different life, one where she could make choices, one where she could follow curiosity instead of duty, one where she could be herself fully and openly. The next morning, she returned to the gardens and found Alex tinkering with a small mechanical device. He looked up and smiled warmly. "Good morning, Princess," he said. "Did you sleep well?" "Yes," she replied, though her thoughts were far from restful. I have been thinking a lot about humans, about freedom, about choices." Alex nodded. "It is natural to think about these things. We all need to understand who we are and what we want. You don't have to follow a path just because it was planned for you." Lyria froze for a moment, her heart racing. Could she truly make her own path? Could she stand up to the expectations of her family and her society? For the first time, she realized that her life could be more than just rules and ceremonies. She could be like humans, curious, bold, and free. And she wanted that. Later that week, Lyria visited the Valorian archives to study history. She read stories of rulers, scholars, and explorers. But something felt different now. The stories that once inspired obedience now felt incomplete. They had achieved greatness, yes, but always within strict limits. She thought of Alex and the humans he represented. They achieved greatness too, but in a different way, by taking risks, learning from mistakes, and choosing their own path. Lyria's heart swelled with a quiet determination. She would not act rashly, but she knew that something inside her had changed. She could not ignore it. Humans had awakened a new kind of courage in her, the courage to question, to choose, and to grow. That evening, she met Alex one last time before he would attend a formal gala with the royal family. She watched him interact with Valorians, seeing again how his kindness, patience, and honesty quietly inspired everyone around him. He was not powerful in the way a Valorian prince might be, but he was powerful in a way that mattered even more. As they walked through the gardens together under the starlit sky, Lyria whispered, I have never met anyone like you, Alex. You make me feel free." Alex smiled, his expression gentle. "That is what humans try to do. We inspire freedom wherever we can. Perhaps, someday, your people will feel it too." Lyria's heart leapt. Perhaps someday indeed, but for now she knew that her life had changed forever. She had seen a glimpse of a world beyond rules, a world of choice, curiosity, and courage. and for the first time she wanted to explore it fully. As the night grew quiet and the twin moons rose over Valoria, Lyria realized that the human ambassador had done something extraordinary. He had awakened her own spirit, and she knew deep inside that nothing would ever be the same again. Days passed on Valoria, and the air seemed different to Princess Lyria. It was not the twin suns nor the shimmer of the palace walls. It was the presence of the human ambassador, Alex, whose quiet ways had begun to change her life. Lyria had always been careful, obedient, and perfectly composed. But now she felt a growing restlessness. Something inside her had awakened, a small spark that refused to be ignored. The palace was alive with preparations for her upcoming royal engagement. Advisors and attendants moved swiftly, discussing schedules, ceremonies, and gifts for the other planet. Yet Lyria found herself wandering the palace gardens whenever she could, hoping to catch a glimpse of Alex or to find a quiet space where her thoughts could roam freely. One morning, she found him sitting beneath a flowering tree, examining a small mechanical device with quiet concentration. The device was unfamiliar to her, but she watched curiously as he carefully adjusted its moving parts. "Princess Lyria," Alex said, looking up and smiling. "Good morning. I hope I'm not disturbing you?" Lyria shook her head. "No. I wanted to see what you were doing." Alex held the device toward her. "It's a small tool I'm trying to repair. It's simple for humans, but interestingly tricky here. Would you like to try?" Lyria hesitated. She had never touched a mechanical device before. Valorians rarely worked with their hands outside ceremonial duties, and she was unsure she could manage. But curiosity overpowered fear. She reached out, and Alex guided her fingers carefully, showing her how to adjust a tiny lever. Together, they fixed the device. It buzzed to life with a soft hum, and Lyria's eyes widened in surprise. She had created something, repaired something, on her own. For the first time, she felt a rush of achievement that had nothing to do with duty or royal expectation. "You did that well," Alex said, his voice warm and encouraging. "See? You can learn and create even in unfamiliar ways." Lyria smiled a little shyly. "I never thought I could." "That's what humans are good at," Alex said simply. "We try, we fail, we learn, and we try again. It's not about perfection. It's about growth." For hours they worked together in the gardens, fixing small devices, experimenting with ideas, and sharing quiet conversation. Lyria realized that every moment with Alex felt different. Her heart raced in ways she did not fully understand. She had always been calm, orderly, predictable, but now she laughed, wondered, and felt excited about possibilities she had never imagined. As the twin suns began to set, Alex looked at her thoughtfully. "Princess, have you ever thought about what you truly want, not what others expect of you?" Lyria froze. The question was simple, yet it pierced through everything she had ever known. I don't know," she admitted softly. "I have always done what was expected, but now I feel something new. I feel curiosity, hope, even freedom." Alex nodded. "That is good. It is important to feel these things. They show you the path to yourself." Lyria felt a warmth in her chest. Humans were so different from Valorians, not in strength or intelligence, but in the way they inspired courage, creativity, and choice. Alex's presence reminded her that life could be more than a set of rules. She did not yet understand everything. She felt, but she knew one thing. She wanted to explore this feeling further. Over the next few days, Lyria began seeking Alex whenever she could. Their walks in the gardens became longer, their conversations deeper. They shared stories about their worlds. Alex told her about Earth, its people, and their strange but beautiful ways of living. Lyria told him about Valoria, her childhood, and the strict rules she had followed. Alex listened carefully, never judging, always curious. He asked questions that made Lyria think differently, questions she had never dared ask herself before. "Why must you follow the rules?" he asked one afternoon as they sat beside a crystal fountain. Who decides what is right for you? Lyria frowned. My parents, my advisors, tradition. It is expected of me. But do you agree? Alex asked gently. She hesitated. No one had ever asked her that before. I do not know. Sometimes I feel trapped as if my choices do not matter. But I do not know how to change that. Alex smiled softly. You can start small. Every choice you make for yourself, no matter how simple, is a step toward freedom. You do not need to follow every rule blindly. Lyria's mind raced. Could she truly make choices for herself? Could she dare to question her arranged marriage, her life, and the rules she had always obeyed? The thought was frightening, but also exhilarating. As the days passed, Lyria and Alex began discovering shared hobbies. They experimented with small inventions, drew pictures of the alien landscapes, and even tried composing simple songs together. Valoria's palace, usually silent and formal, became a space of laughter, curiosity, and creativity whenever they were together. One afternoon, while working on a small floating device, Lyria accidentally triggered a minor malfunction. The device whirred, clicked, and then gently floated into the air. Lyria froze, unsure what to do. Alex smiled calmly. See? That is exactly what humans call a happy accident. Sometimes mistakes lead to discovery. Lyria laughed, feeling a lightness she had never known. She realized that being imperfect was not frightening. It was freeing. Humans did not fear mistakes. They embraced them. And in that moment she felt a connection to Alex that went beyond admiration. She trusted him, learned from him, and felt inspired by him in ways she could not fully explain. The palace staff began noticing Lyria's changes. She smiled more, asked questions, and sometimes even refused to follow minor ceremonial rules. Some whispered that she was becoming rebellious, but Lyria no longer cared. She felt alive, curious, and confident in a way that was entirely new. One evening, Alex invited her to observe the night sky. Valoria's twin moons glowed softly, and stars twinkled like distant lanterns. He held a small telescope and showed her constellations she had never known. On Earth, he said, humans look at the stars and wonder what is out there. We dream. We imagine. We explore. The universe is full of possibilities. And it is our choice to reach for them. Lyria gazed at the stars, her heart swelling with a mix of awe and longing. I have never thought like that, she admitted. I always believed my life was already written for me. Perhaps, Alex said softly. But now you know it does not have to be. You can choose your own path, even in a world full of expectations. For the first time, Lyria felt hope that she could shape her life. She realized that the human ambassador had not only taught her about another world, but about herself. He had shown her courage, kindness, and freedom in ways that her strict upbringing never could. Their connection deepened in quiet, unspoken ways. Lyria found herself looking for Alex in the hallways, listening to the sound of his voice, and seeking his guidance in small personal matters. She no longer feared making mistakes because Alex had shown her that mistakes could lead to growth. One day, while they were repairing a small robotic helper in the gardens, Lyria looked up at Alex and noticed something she had never expected. She felt admiration, trust, and an odd fluttering excitement in her chest. She realized that humans had something special, something that Valorians rarely showed, the courage to be themselves, to explore, and to care deeply. Alex, she said quietly, I am glad you are here. You have changed how I see everything. Alex smiled warmly. And you have reminded me that even in worlds I do not fully understand, there are people who can inspire change. You are one of them, Princess. Lyria froze, feeling a warmth she could not explain. Humans had a way of looking at life, and at people, that made her feel valued, curious, and brave all at once. For the first time, she believed that she could make choices for herself no matter how difficult or frightening. That night, as Lyria lay in her chambers, she thought about the coming days. Her arranged marriage loomed closer, yet she no longer felt resigned. Something inside her had shifted. She had discovered courage, curiosity, and a sense of possibility through Alex's presence. She realized that her life could be different, and that she had the power to choose. And deep inside, a quiet voice whispered. This was only the beginning. Lyria had formed a secret connection, not just with a human, but with a new way of thinking, a new way of living. She had learned that life was not only about duty, rules, or perfection, but about curiosity, choice, and courage. And as the twin moons cast their silver light over Valoria, Lyria felt a thrill of anticipation for the future, a future she could shape herself. The day of the royal engagement ceremony was approaching, and the palace of Valoria was alive with preparations. Every hallway shimmered with polished floors, every wall reflected the golden light of the twin suns, and every attendant moved with careful precision. The weight of expectation pressed on Princess Lyria more heavily than ever before. Yet, amidst the careful order, Lyria felt something stronger than fear, curiosity, courage, and a quiet determination she had never known. The presence of Alex, the human ambassador, had awakened something inside her. She had discovered that life could be more than rules, rituals, and obedience, and now she had to decide what she truly wanted. Her parents and advisors gathered her in the Grand Council room that morning. The king's voice was firm and commanding. Lyria, today is your duty. The engagement ceremony will bind our kingdom with another. You must obey, as is expected of a princess. Lyria nodded politely, though her mind was elsewhere. She had learned to obey, but she had also learned to question. She could feel Alex's words echoing in her mind. You can choose your own path. The queen, her mother, stepped forward, her expression gentle but firm. You have been trained for this day. Remember your responsibilities, Lyria. Honor, tradition, and duty must guide you. Lyria felt a small pulse of rebellion, but she kept her composure. The choice she was considering was not reckless. It was deliberate, thoughtful, and inspired by something she had discovered: freedom. She excused herself from the council and walked into the gardens, seeking the quiet space where she had spent so many hours with Alex. The twin suns shone brightly, warming her face as she sat beneath the flowering trees. She thought about him, about the patience, kindness, and courage he had shown. He had awakened in her the desire to act for herself, not for duty or expectation. Alex appeared, as if he had sensed her thoughts. Princess, he said softly, you seem troubled. Is everything all right? I am not sure, Lyria admitted. The ceremony is tomorrow. I am expected to follow a path that I never chose. And yet, I feel that I cannot simply obey. Alex nodded. That feeling is important. It is the voice of your own mind, your own heart. Humans believe that we must listen to that voice even when it is difficult. Lyria looked at him, her heart racing. But what if I fail? What if I disappoint everyone? Then you will still be true to yourself, Alex replied. That is worth more than obedience. People may be surprised, even upset, but true courage is acting with honesty and integrity, not fear. For the first time, Lyria realized the truth of his words. She had lived her entire life following rules, but she had never truly lived for herself. She had learned that humans were not perfect, but they were brave in ways that inspired others. Perhaps she could be brave too. That evening, she walked through the palace halls, observing the preparations. Servants hung shimmering banners, advisors rehearsed speeches, and musicians tuned their instruments. Everywhere she looked, the palace reflected tradition and duty. And yet, Lyria felt a new kind of power stirring inside her, the power of choice. Next morning, as the ceremony began, Lyria dressed in ceremonial robes of gold and silver. Her attendants fussed over every detail, ensuring that she looked perfect. But inside, Lyria felt a strange calm. She had made her decision. She would not act recklessly, but she would not obey blindly either. The Grand Hall was filled with Valorians and dignitaries from across the galaxy. Chandeliers glimmered like stars, and the twin suns cast beams of light through the crystal windows. Music filled the air, and the ceremonial rituals began. When Lyria entered the hall, she froze. Not in fear, but in awe. She saw Alex standing near the center, his calm presence cutting through the rigid formality of the court. For a moment, she felt the weight of expectation pressing down on her, but then she remembered his words. True courage is acting with honesty and integrity, not fear. As the officiants began the formal proceedings, Lyria felt a strange clarity. She realized that she could honor her world while also honoring herself. She could respect tradition, but she could also assert her own choice. When it was time for her to speak, Lyria stepped forward. Her voice, usually soft and obedient, rang clearly through the hall. "I cannot marry out of obligation," she said, her eyes scanning the assembly. "I have been trained to obey, to honor tradition, and to follow rules. But I have learned that life is more than duty. Life is about choice, curiosity, and courage. I cannot pretend to accept a future that is not my own." Gasps echoed through the hall. Courtiers whispered in shock. The king's face turned stern. The queen's lips pressed tightly together, and advisors murmured in confusion. No Valorian princess had ever spoken this way. Alex stepped forward calmly, his presence steadying the room. "Princess Lyria is speaking the truth," he said. "Humans believe in choice, in courage, and in living honestly. She has discovered these truths for herself, and she is brave to act on them." The hall grew silent. The weight of tradition clashed with the clarity of honesty. Lyria's words, supported by the human ambassador, caused a ripple of reflection throughout the assembly. People began to see that perhaps duty and obedience were not the only measures of a person's worth. Lyria continued, her voice stronger now. "I respect our traditions, and I honor my family, but I cannot live a life dictated solely by duty. I must choose my own path, even if it is difficult, even if it surprises everyone. I will act with integrity, and I will embrace the courage to be myself." For a moment, the hall seemed to hold its breath. Then, slowly, a murmur of approval began. Some Valorians, especially younger nobles, exchanged glances inspired by her bravery. Others remained shocked, but none could deny the strength in her voice and the conviction in her eyes. The king stepped forward, his expression unreadable. "Princess," he said, his voice firm, "you are speaking against tradition, against duty, against the future of Valoria. This is unusual." Lyria held her ground. "Father, I honor you, and I honor Valoria, but I cannot honor myself if I do not act according to what I have learned. I have discovered courage, kindness, and freedom from a visitor from another world, and I wish to bring these lessons into my life, even as I respect our society." Alex smiled subtly, his presence steady and reassuring. "She speaks with honesty and integrity. That is the essence of courage." The assembly murmured again, this time with more curiosity than shock. Lyria had spoken truth, and it was impossible to ignore. The court began to see that perhaps a princess could be strong, brave, and thoughtful, not merely obedient. After the ceremony, as the crowd dispersed, Lyria walked through the quiet halls with Alex. You helped me find courage," she said softly. "I never thought I could speak like that, or even feel this way." Alex nodded. "You had it all along. Humans can only show you the way, but the choice always belongs to you. You acted with honesty and bravery. That is far more important than obedience." Lyria smiled, feeling a warmth she had never known. She had faced the weight of tradition, expectation, and duty, and she had chosen herself. It was not an easy path, but it was hers. In the following days, the palace began to change subtly. People whispered about the princess who dared to choose, her own path, inspired by a human's example. The younger nobles began asking questions, the scholars reflected on new ideas, and even some older advisors considered the value of courage and honesty over blind obedience. Lyria walked through the gardens with Alex one evening, the twin suns setting behind them. "I feel different," she admitted. "I have never known freedom like this before. I want to explore it, learn from it, and share it with others." Alex smiled. "That is the human way: curiosity, courage, and choice. You have taken your first steps, Princess. The rest of the path is yours to walk." Lyria looked up at the sky, feeling a quiet thrill of anticipation. The future was uncertain, but it was hers. She had discovered that courage was not about following rules or pleasing others. It was about listening to her heart, embracing her curiosity, and acting with integrity. And deep inside, she knew that her life had changed forever. Humans had shown her that true strength was not in perfection, but in bravery, kindness, and the courage to choose one's own path. As the twin moons rose over Valoria, casting silver light across the palace gardens, Lyria felt a sense of calm and purpose. She had faced expectation, tradition, and duty, and she had chosen herself. And with Alex by her side, she felt ready to embrace whatever the future might bring. The choice had been made. The path was hers. And for the first time, Princess Lyria felt truly free. The days following Princess Lyria's bold choice were unlike any the Palace of Valoria had ever experienced. Whispers of admiration, surprise, and curiosity traveled through the halls. Nobles who had once strictly followed tradition now looked at each other with questioning eyes. Even the advisors, cautious and careful by nature, began to consider new ideas. Lyria's courage had sparked something unexpected, a sense that perhaps rules and expectations were not the only ways to live. Lyria herself felt lighter, freer, and more alive than she had ever known. Each morning she rose not merely to fulfill her duties but to explore the world in her own way. She spent her days walking through the palace gardens, visiting the library, and learning new things. And always, she sought out Alex, whose calm presence and human perspective continued to inspire her. One morning, the palace received a delegation from another distant planet. They had come to meet Valoria's princess, curious about the rumors of her bravery and her unconventional choice. Lyria greeted them warmly, her voice steady and confident. "I welcome you," she said. "I hope you will see not only the beauty of our palace and our people, but also the value of courage, curiosity, and choice." The delegation exchanged glances. One of the ambassadors, a tall being with green-tinted skin, spoke carefully. "Your words are unusual for a princess, yet they are wise. You have shown us that even royalty can inspire change by choosing honesty and freedom." Lyria smiled. She realized that her actions had already begun to influence others. The spark that Alex had ignited in her now reached beyond her personal life. It touched her society, encouraging others to consider new possibilities. That afternoon, she met Alex in the palace gardens. "Look at them," she said softly, gesturing toward the delegation. "They are thinking differently because of what we have done." Alex nodded. "Yes. Humans believe that ideas, courage, and kindness are contagious. You have shown them that truth and bravery are powerful tools, Princess." Lyria's heart swelled. She had always thought that a princess's life was small, confined, and predetermined. Now she understood that one person's courage could ripple across a world, inspiring growth, understanding, and hope. The following weeks were filled with small, meaningful changes. Lyria began to participate in palace meetings not as a silent observer but as a thoughtful voice. She asked questions, suggested new ideas, and encouraged creativity among her staff. Some were hesitant at first, but they soon realized that her insights were wise, her questions thoughtful, and her leadership inspiring. Even the young nobles began to follow her example. They experimented with new ways of thinking, asked questions about the old rules, and explored creative solutions to challenges. Valoria, a planet long steeped in tradition, was beginning to shift, not because rules were broken, but because courage, curiosity, and human-inspired thinking were taking root. One evening, as the twin suns set and the palace glimmered in golden light, Lyria walked through the gardens with Alex. "I never imagined my life could feel like this," she said. "I used to think I was only a princess who obeyed rules. But now, I see that I can choose, learn, and grow." Alex smiled. "That is the human way, and you have embraced it beautifully. You are not just a princess now. You are a leader, a guide, and an inspiration. You show your people what is possible when courage and choice meet wisdom and kindness." Lyria paused, watching the petals of a glowing flower drift in the evening breeze. "I feel hopeful. I want to keep learning, keep helping my people, and show them that life can be different, better, if we embrace curiosity, honesty, and courage." Alex's eyes softened. "That is the essence of humanity. We do not need perfection. We only need the courage to be ourselves, to inspire others, and to make thoughtful choices. You have discovered that, princess." In the following months, Valoria experienced remarkable changes. Scholars began sharing ideas across disciplines, artists were encouraged to experiment, and younger citizens felt inspired to explore their passions. Lyria became a symbol of possibility, a living reminder that bravery, honesty, and curiosity could transform a society. One day, a group of children approached her in the palace gardens, wide-eyed and eager. "Princess Lyria," one of them said, "we have built a small flying machine inspired by your stories with the human ambassador. Can you see it?" Lyria laughed softly and knelt to their level. "Of course. Show me." The children activated the tiny machine, and it hovered in the air, spinning gracefully. Lyria clapped her hands in delight. "You see," she said, "curiosity and courage can create wonderful things. Never stop asking questions, learning, and trying new ideas." Alex watched quietly from nearby, smiling at Lyria's joy. He had come to Valoria to observe, but instead, he had helped awaken a new way of thinking, and it had transformed the princess and the planet alike. One evening, as the twin moons rose over Valoria, Lyria and Alex walked in silence. The palace was calm, but the air was filled with possibility. Lyria turned to him, her eyes shining. "Alex, thank you for showing me that life can be different, that choice matters, and that courage is more powerful than obedience. I will never forget this." Alex shook his head gently. "No, princess. You discovered this yourself. Humans can guide, but only you can make the choice to act. You were brave enough to do that, and your actions will ripple across Valoria for generations." Lyria felt a quiet pride. She had faced tradition, expectation, and duty, and she had chosen herself. And in doing so, she had sparked a change that would touch countless lives. The palace, once a symbol of rigid order, now reflected a new reality. Valoria was still beautiful and structured, but it was alive with creativity, curiosity, and the quiet courage of its people. The twin suns shone brighter in her heart, and the twin moons cast a silver glow of hope across the gardens. In the weeks that followed, Lyria continued to explore her world, guided by human-inspired curiosity and the wisdom she had gained from Alex. She learned new sciences, tried new arts, and encouraged others to do the same. She became a bridge between tradition and innovation, duty and freedom, Valoria and Earth. Through it all, she never forgot the lessons she had learned. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the strength to act honestly despite it. Curiosity leads to growth, discovery, and understanding. Choice is the most powerful gift, and it must be embraced responsibly. Kindness, patience, and integrity can inspire change in others more than power or authority ever could. And as the months turned into years, Princess Lyria became more than a royal figure. She became a symbol of possibility, a living example of how humans and their values could inspire change, even in the most distant corners of the galaxy. One morning, she stood in the palace gardens, watching children play with small flying machines, robots, and artistic creations. She saw scholars debating new ideas, artists experimenting boldly, and citizens speaking freely. And in the center of it all, Alex stood quietly, observing with pride. Lyria turned to him, her heart full of gratitude. "I never thought life could feel like this, free, full of possibilities, and meaningful. Thank you for showing me the way." Alex smiled warmly. "You found it yourself, Princess, humans' only guide. You acted, and in doing so, you have changed your world." As the twin suns rose high over Valoria, casting golden light across the palace gardens, Lyria realized that the future was no longer something given to her. It was something she would shape step by step with courage, curiosity, and choice. And she knew that the galaxy itself had more wonders waiting for her to discover. For the first time, Princess Lyria felt truly, completely free. She had opposed the path laid out for her, embraced the lessons of humanity, and discovered the extraordinary power of choice. And with that, she stepped forward into a new life, one of inspiration, curiosity, and hope for herself and all of Valoria.